It's about the ability to kind of pursue our own interests, exist as a protagonist within our own life, right? And have the experience of our life feel like it actually matters and it's central. It's like when you are dancing at that club, right? You feel like I'm central here. Like this is me.
I matter.
Yeah, I'm the
Matter.
center of the scene. And then when you become a mom and a wife, suddenly like you are the supporting character, right? Enabling somebody else's like growth and thriving. And I want women to reclaim their role as the protagonist in their own lives, whatever age you are. If you are 30, if you're 40, if you're 50, okay? The experience of your life matters. And you need to be living a life that feels rich and exciting and joyful.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Tuckered Out with me, Ami Tucker. Today, I interview Dr. Corinne Low, who is an associate professor of business economics and public policy at the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania. Her research focuses on the economics of gender and discrimination and has been published in top journals everywhere. Her first book, Having It All, is coming out on September 23rd. And guys, especially women, but men too, but especially women, you need to read this. This book really is a framework for all of us women, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a working mom, whether you're single, whether you're married. Really talks to all of us about how to design a life that goes beyond this whole work-life binary and really trying to understand how to create true balance and look at it all in different ways. Because guess what, guys, to my ladies out there, feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling just, the brain fog, it's not all in your head. I mean, it is, but you're not crazy. It's all in the data. Dr. Corinne shows us that this is actually all factual, and there really is no right way to having it all, which is kind of freeing and also kind of frustrating and also all the things. But the book definitely made me feel better and definitely made me feel a little bit more sane. Also, all of us ladies need to pat each other on the back and really remember that we are doing a really good job. So everyone get the book, Having It All, coming out September 23rd. And I hope you enjoy my interview with Dr. Corinne Low. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, of course. So where are you calling from right now?
I'm in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Okay, that's home. And, of course, rummaging through your social media for research and reading about you. Congrats, I think, new baby or somewhat new baby?
New baby.
Okay.
That's why I couldn't get on earlier because I had to get everybody out of the house. So it was like, so we wouldn't have any noise in the background. So I was like, okay, I have to get baby out of the house. I had to get my 8-year-old, my babysitter was going to pick up my 8-year-old. So I was like, you have to be out before, So.
No, of course. I was like sitting here. I was like, if you are free, if you want to start, but of course, no worries. Trust me, I get it. Well, I have an 8 and 11-year-old now. And, you have an 8-year-old. And I know, there's an 8-year age gap with the babies. I have a 3-year gap. And when I had my second child, I had already forgotten all the baby stuff. Like I had blacked it all out and forgot what it was to have a newborn and be pregnant again and all of that stuff. So I can imagine this is like starting all over again for you.
Yeah, that was how I felt. I was like, oh, I loved being pregnant. And then I got pregnant. I was like, this is total bullshit.
Yes.
I had like rose-colored glasses about the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I was not a good pregnant woman. I'm like, I don't know how these other women are doing it and smiling and looking good. And maybe they're pretending, but I was like, I was terrible. I was like gassy and gross and all over the place. So, but congrats. What a fun and cute time. And how's the book tour going?
Good. It's just like, it's learning every step of the way. I've been an academic for a long time. I'm like, I'm good at that. I know what that is. And this is just a totally new world of just a lot of new stuff and like podcasts and trying to do, TV and interviews and all of this different stuff. So, and the book's not even out yet. It's out September 23rd. So it's like, it's just getting more crazy week by week. And, and I'm learning things every day.
It's the opening up part of your brain that you never thought you had. So,
Which is good for us, right?
yes,
That's
it is
yeah.
constant learning. So I have the book. I am halfway done with it, to be totally honest with you, because my kids started school last week and I am in the midst of madness as well. But it's been so fantastic to read so far. I feel like every other page, I'm like, yes, like I get it. It's like, oh my gosh. And so I kind of wanted to rewind a little bit and talk about childhood and ask you, where did you grow up? And what were your parents doing when you were growing up?
I grew up mostly with a single mom. My parents got separated when I was 3, and my mom went back to school. And, so I feel like I saw some of these things firsthand for her when she went back to school full time and, trying to kind of restart her career after getting separated. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. So I think that is one of the big things. Like, I do mention it in the book that, like, the contrast between like our childhoods and like the childhoods that we're trying to give our children are so stark. So in my childhood, like, we were roaming the streets, okay? Like, we were feral out there with our bicycles and our squirt guns and like no snacks, no water bottles. You know what I mean? And now it's like, I feel like we bubble wrap our children, right? And they have to have the snack and water bottle. And I have to walk them to the friend's house. And all of that is time. And, the 1 hour bedtime routine. I mean, my bedtime routine was go to bed, right? So that's time. And like, that's one of the things I think I really want women to cut themselves some slack on is that when you say, okay, my mother's generation was able to do this, like, what's wrong with me? It's like, no, they weren't doing this. They were doing something else.
They totally were. I can't tell you, Corinne, my mom, I'm older than you. I was born in 79, so raised in the 80s. And my mom, till this day, is always asking me, why are you so always so tired? Like, it's not that hard. And I love her. She's my best friend, but I'm also like, seriously, like, you just don't get it. Like, it is such, I know we're doing it to ourselves. I know that's what it is, but it's also our community and everyone around us. And it's just constant bombardment of what it means to be a mom, a working mom, a perfect mom. Like, I stress out when my kids are playing in the front yard by themselves. Like, this is where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, it's what the messages we've gotten from society, but it's also about the economic returns. So our parents' generation didn't understand that the time that they spent with their children was kind of building lifelong psychological resilience, human capital. That's why we're in therapy right now, right?
Uh-huh. This is
So
this is my therapy, this
yeah.
podcast.
It's like we love our parents, but it's like there are some things, right, that some good things, and there are some things that are hard from, being raised without that care and attention, right? And so we're trying to give our kids something different. And it also has to do with the economy, because in our parents' generation, like, as long as you got a college degree, whatever job you got, you were going to be able to afford homeownership. You were going to be able to afford the American dream, right? And, for our kids, we see how competitive it is out there. And we see that, okay, no, you have to go to that right school. And that's what the data shows. The data shows that parents today are spending twice as much time with our kids as parents a generation ago. And I call that kind of like, it's like the silent epidemic, because nobody knows that. So then the moms are out here being like, okay, am I crazy? Why does it feel so hard? And it's like, well, because the hours in the day actually don't add up to kind of try to be the type of parent that you are trying to be, and try to work full time in the market and have this career that is also, by the way, more demanding than the careers that our parents have.
Yeah, I mean, that's one, and we're gonna get to the book, and that's one of my favorite takeaways from the book so far, and what I've been reading about it. It's not in our heads. Like, we are not crazy. We are overwhelmed and tired, but there is proof, there is data why we are, which kind of feels good to know that we aren't like losing our minds. So yeah, so obviously you are an economics professor. I actually have a question for you. Do you say economics or economics?
Economics. I think I say economics.
Economics.
To
Okay.
think about it.
I
Yeah.
was an economics major and I say economics, and then I get told it's economics, and I'm like, I'm going to ask a Wharton professor what she
Yeah.
thinks.
Well, because it's funny because you say econ, right?
Yeah,
But I think you
right.
say economics and econ.
Okay. I'm going with you. You're the expert. So economics. And you are a professor of economics, obviously, at the Wharton School. And you focus, obviously, on gender and discrimination. So curious to understand what you took away I guess from your mom's role, I know your dad wasn't really present, but what you took away as a child from your mom's role and how that's affected you now.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's really interesting. So I think because my mom was a single mom and she had to support us, it was always to me the ticket out was going to be through career, right? Like that was how I was going to succeed in my life. And I actually never really thought that much about what I wanted my family to look like. If I wanted kids, how many kids I wanted. Like I very much thought about this is what I want to accomplish career wise, and then I met somebody, right? And kind of I got into a relationship and I was really a serious relationship when I was really young. I met my ex-husband when I was 21. And was my first serious relationship because that, again, it wasn't like shopping for a husband was kind of nowhere on my list of to-dos. And so, but I got into a serious relationship and then one day wanted kids, right? And just felt that very strongly and really hadn't necessarily thought out like the timing and when's optimal and when am I going to do this. I kind of the book is very like physician heal thyself, right? I want the young women who read it to kind of see like, oh, okay, these are some things that I should think about and some of the conversations I should be having early on in my relationships, because for me I didn't do that. Yeah, so I don't think I saw, because my mom did both, right? I think I saw that like you only have kind of yourself to rely on. And so I think that is how I ended up in a place where I did have a career where I became the breadwinner in my relationship, because I always felt like having a stable career, investing in my human capital and education, like that was always paramount. And I guess I didn't think so much and didn't have role models for like, well, what does that domestic division of labor look like with a spouse? And how do you navigate that?
That's interesting. Cause when I was thinking about this question, because I grew up in a typical, mom, dad, married, arranged marriage where we're Indian American, or my parents immigrated from India. I was the first generation born here, and kind of typical wife husband role. That's what I grew up with. So I understand kind of why when I hit my 20s, was freaking out about getting married. I mean, my parents definitely were. I got married at 30, which is like, oh my
You
God,
were so
I
old.
was such a grandmom. Like, I'm not going to ever have kids. So I knew it was always drilled in my mind. I was always fighting it, which is a whole other thing. But it's interesting because you didn't grow up in that kind of environment. And so it feels like this idea for many women is instilled within us, even if you're not around it or even if you haven't grown up with it. Isn't that interesting that somehow you still got to that kind of traditional role?
Yeah, that I still feel the mom guilt and I still feel like, oh, I'm the one who's a failure if the kids don't look like this or they don't have this, home baked this and handmade that and all that stuff, right? Yeah, we feel that social pressure to perform motherhood. And that is one of the things I tell people is that like part of what's producing that social pressure right now is all of that content on Instagram, et cetera, right? And I'm like, that is a lie, because that is not somebody doing their domestic duties. That's someone performing their career. And you are probably as good at your career as they are at doing that.
Without posting it. Without posting it.
But what's not realistic is for you to do your career and then have a home life that looks like this when that's somebody else's career, right? So I think it's a major problem that we like see these images of performative motherhood, performative femininity, and we're like, oh, I have to be able to do that and this. And it's like, no, the hours don't add up.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's tiring. I just curious. I know you had gone to Duke University, got your BS in economics, and then your PhD in economics from Columbia. I also was an economics major at University of Texas at Austin, and I will tell you, I did not know what I wanted to do. I was all over the place. If I had known myself properly, I would have gone to journalism school, but I grew up in a very strict household where they were like, you either go to law school or med school or you fail. And so I was like, well, med school's not happening because I can't do science. And
You can be
so,
anything you want, either a lawyer or a doctor.
yeah, anything you want, but those two. I decided on economics just because I literally could not figure out what else to do. And the point of this rant is I am so sad that I did not embrace that degree more and did not embrace my classes more. I was taking classes, economics classes from these amazing professors at UT, and had this beautiful few years to learn and really understand what economics means. And I took it all for granted. So when I read about you and heard about you, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so curious because this is what you do and you've embraced it and you've turned it into something that you are passionate about. Did you always know?
No, I didn't. So please, so don't take away that
Okay.
oh, this is this carefully plotted out plan that no, I knew that I needed to make money. And so actually, I've always loved writing. And so it's funny because this book coming out is kind of a full circle moment for me. Because if you had asked me what I wanted to be when I was 9 years old, I would have said I wanted to be a writer. So as much as I was majoring in economics, I was minoring in journalism. And I was trying to do, and I was, yeah, and I was taking these English literature classes on the side and creative writing classes. And I loved that. But then when it came time to look for jobs, I started looking at journalism jobs. They were paying like $25,000 a year in New York City, right? And then my friends were interviewing for consulting, and I had never heard of consulting. I literally didn't even know that was a profession. And so, again, I think growing up with a single mom, she had her specific career, and I just didn't get that exposure to a variety of different professions or options. So I had no idea consulting was even a thing, but my friends were interviewing for it, and I was hearing about the starting salaries that they were getting. And I said, I'm going to try to interview for this. And I did. And, then I realized that was going to allow me to pay off my loans, right? If I did that for a couple of years. And so I did that. And then while I was a consultant, I was trying to figure out my next step because by that point, I was really interested in having a career in economics, but specifically, I was interested in development economics. And because I wanted to do it in a way that I felt like was contributing to making the world a better place in some way. And I was trying to figure out, how do I want to do that? Do I want to kind of do that through the private sector? Do I want to get an MBA next? And I think being at a consulting firm where everything is very back of the envelope calculation, 80/20 solution, it made me kind of crave more of that intellectual rigor because I'm like, no, I actually want the 100% solution. I want to find out the answers, not just kind of prescribe them, but actually be part of that knowledge discovery process. So I decided to get a PhD, still not thinking I was going to be an academic, thinking I was going to get a PhD and then go work for the World Bank or the Gates Foundation and kind of try to be a practitioner of economics in that way. But while I was getting my PhD, I just absolutely fell in love with the research process and being able to find that those echoes of our own lives in the data, like in the way you felt kind of reading the book, right? That's how I felt doing the research for the book. Because I was like, what? This is true for other people. This isn't just true for me. The data is telling stories that kind of match with our own experiences. And for me, because women's experiences had been so neglected in this science, right? It was so fascinating trying to extend these same tools to understanding women's experiences. And so that was kind of how I ended up where I was, but it started with the goal of paying off my student loans.
That's all. I'm glad that's all of our story. So that makes me feel better. And speaking back to women's experiences, I feel like data and, just everything. I'm even talking about the medical world, everything to do with women seems like it's lagging, right? We're behind on things. And so when you say that, I'm like, yeah, that's not shocking that we weren't in the picture to learn about all of this. How are you enjoying being a professor at the Wharton School? And I got to ask you this just because of the crazy world we live in. How's the vibe on campus with our crazy administration kind of pulling strings on different kind of funding, which I guess I'm curious whether that affects you at all.
It is definitely a challenging time to be an academic because we see that these academic institutions are kind of a focal point in a way that I think researchers were often in the background. We're like, we don't want to be the focus, right?
Yeah. You guys are like, wait, we didn't do anything. What's happening?
And then especially kind of for what I work on, because I work on gender, I work on discrimination. And so I know what the science says, I know what the data says. And so it's frustrating then to kind of see that misrepresented in the public sphere where people are saying, okay, I actually like literally have a study on reverse discrimination. And so for people to say, oh, reverse discrimination is this big thing. And I'm like, no, I literally have a study that shows that recruiters think it exists and that therefore shapes sometimes how they evaluate resumes, that they might, for example, give less credit for an internship on a female or minority candidate's resume because they have this belief about reverse discrimination. But actually, it's not true. And actually, we see that those same recruiters are still discriminating against female minority candidates, right? So they act as though that, this might be an environment that favors certain types of people, when the reality is all of the data, all of the science that we have shows that discrimination still exists, it's still prevalent, it's still shaping hiring decisions, right? Yeah, it's challenging to have that conflict between kind of what the evidence is and what is shaping the discourse and shaping policy. And so, I think but it is a really important time to keep doing research that is driven not by ideology, but by what the data says. But the data is going to tell you the story. Sometimes it's going to surprise you. And we have to keep putting that out there. I am lucky that because Wharton, feel like a lot of what we do is funded by the teaching that we do. So we're a little bit less reliant on some of the research funding that has been really putting a squeeze on other people. So it's still a challenge. I still have projects where funding has gotten cut because it did have outside funding, but I am lucky that so much of what we're doing is training the next generation. And so a lot of our funding kind of comes from that.
Oh, thank God. When I mean, as an outsider reading about all this stuff, I'm like, we just need you guys so much more than ever. And I'm just hoping that all of our academics, researchers, like, I hope that this blows over because, like, it's scary to think my husband went to HBS and Stanford undergrad, and just like hearing about colleagues and people we know, like, it's very scary. So it makes me feel good that there's hope in our academic world, which is kind of why people want to come to the US in the first place.
Right. And that is, I think also something that, academics can kind of just inform people about, because there is like this discourse right now that international students are like displacing our domestic students. And that's not true. It's like if you actually look at the P&L, because international students are only admitted if they can be full fair paying, right? Full tuition paying, they actually create opportunities for domestic students who are lower income, and they fund that financial aid that allows, domestic students to have more seats. So yeah, it is a time where it's just so important to kind of just keep putting the data out there. And then yeah, to keep training that next generation, because those are the leaders. So when I teach my students, like, here's what the studies say, those are the people who are going to be making these decisions in important positions for the next 20, 30 years. And I'm trying to arm them with more facts to do that.
We need you to speak to Congress, my friend, because everyone has lost their minds. Okay, the book, Having It All. This book is a framework for empowering women to design a life that goes beyond the work-life binary. And what you're really trying to do in this book is you're really trying to help women create or understand what balance is and to look at it in different ways. And like I mentioned before, the two themes that I'm pulling out of it and reading about is that one, being overwhelmed and tired is not in our heads, it's in the data or data. I'm not sure what you say, but I'll say data. And then the other really important theme that women really have to understand is that there is no right way to navigate it all. We need to remind ourselves. And so I kind of wanted to go through three concepts that you've talked about in the book and in some of your articles. The first one is called winning the bread and baking it too. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is a phenomenon that we see in the data now that has increased over time, which is that gender roles have converged in the workplace, but they haven't converged at home. So most women can now do the same job that a man can do in the labor market. That doesn't mean that we are able to do it or get paid as much, because we might have these other responsibilities, but just in terms of the skill, right? We can do the same roles that men can do, because our economy is based less on things like manual labor, where like men might have a real advantage. And it's based more on the knowledge economy, where women are now getting more education than men. So women actually have an advantage. So women have this ability to kind of earn that is equal to men. But what we haven't seen is any change in gender roles at home and in the skills that men bring to the table. Then, when you do end up in a situation where the woman is actually the breadwinner, and that can happen. It can happen even if you think you both got MBAs, but he gets laid off, and suddenly her job takes off. Right? You end up in a situation where the woman is the breadwinner. We don't see him step up at home. And so for heterosexual couples with female breadwinners, the breadwinner still does twice as much cooking and cleaning as her lower earning male partner. And in every other couple type, if it's a heterosexual couple with a male breadwinner, if it's a gay male couple, or if it's a lesbian couple, whoever is the breadwinner does less cooking and cleaning. It just makes sense. Their hours are valuable in the labor market. They need to spend less hours at home. But when it is a female breadwinner in a heterosexual couple, she still does more cooking and cleaning. And it's so extreme to the point where even if I look at a couple where they literally do get paid hourly, and so they could ramp up their time, they pick up an extra shift versus not. And the best example of this type of couple is like a nurse or somebody in the healthcare sector. And then, it could be like a truck driver or an Uber driver or somebody in the manufacturing sector. They get paid hourly. Even when her hourly wage is more than twice his hourly wage, she still works fewer hours than him because he's still clocking those 40 hours a week, even though his wage is so much lower and he's not contributing at home. She's doing more than twice as much at home. And so she doesn't have as much time to kind of put into her career in the labor market. That couple would be financially better off if he would pick the kids up from daycare so she could pick up an extra shift, right? But I think gender roles really stand in the way of doing that.
It's so insane how much they play, how strong these roles are. I don't want to say in our DNA because that makes it seem hopeless, but in this, you're saying all of this housework is, you're not even considering childcare right now. You're just talking about minus the childcare, minus, being a woman and having to deliver and breastfeed and all that stuff. This is despite all that.
Yes, I wanted to take out childcare because I was like, there I can see that there might be some kind of inherent reason why, she's the one who's pregnant, she gives birth, she's breastfeeding, she might take longer maternity leave. So if she's doing more hours of childcare, then I kind of might understand that. And that's what economists would call a technological difference. She has a different technological ability in producing children. But I don't sweep the floor with my uterus, okay? Technologically, when it comes to doing
By the way, I love it when you said that. I saw one of your interviews, and you're like, you were explaining how there is a structural issue right now with women and time and being able to have this quote unquote balance. And you were like, in this interview, you're like, it's not like I sweep with my uterus. Like, men can do it too, So-
Yeah, and then especially because it is like one of the biggest disparities in cooking. And then you look at all the Michelin starred chefs are men, right? They are capable, they're able to do this, right? But when there's a woman in the household, they don't do it because, by the way, gay men, the lower earning person, does step up and provide these housework and these, cooking hours, right? But it is really about when a heterosexual man, there's a woman in the household, he kind of doesn't do it. He sees it as somebody else's job. And I think that that is a major reason why women are so exhausted, right? Because as we've been able to step up and do more of the breadwinning, we are not getting the support on these other tasks. And it does not change, even if you are the primary breadwinner, even if you are literally the sole breadwinner, which is, my personal story that from the book that, my husband left his job. He was starting a business, but that was dragging on for years without him earning any money. And so my salary was entirely paying our bills. And I was commuting 2.5 hours from New York to Philadelphia. And I was still the one who had to schedule the play dates and the doctor's appointments and make sure that there were going to be groceries and meal plan. So he might step in, and then if we ordered like the Blue Apron subscription box, he might cook it, right? But I was the one who had to think about, what are we eating tonight? Have I ordered it, right? Who's picking the kid up? If there's a childcare emergency, how are we filling that gap? And I was winning the bread and baking it too. And so then again, when I saw it in the data, I felt so seen because, and this is where I say data can surprise you, because I knew that disparity was going to be there for childcare, but I had no idea the disparity was going to be so big for these housework tasks where nobody has a natural advantage in it. Like, it is not, and nobody likes doing it, by the way. Like,
who enjoys it, by the way? I always say that. I'm like, And I mean, for me, I'm in a very typical gendered role right now, which we can get into later, which I kind of question, but then kind of don't because I how I grew up. But yeah, I think this discussion right here, Corin, is like something I talk about with my girlfriends every time we go out for wine. We're just like, what the fuck? Why is this continuously happening? And then I think we also, most women that are in these heterosexual marriages in kind of the situation, ask ourselves, are we part of the problem? Because, yeah, we're annoyed that these men aren't taking up enough of the work that we need help with in the house, but then also we're letting it go and doing it anyway. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But when I read that, I was like, okay, thank God. This is like proof, a scientific proof that this is happening.
Yeah, because it's like, as you said, like, we might find a lot of joy and meaning in taking care of our kids, right? Like, that is something that we might be choosing to say, I want to lean into, I want to spend more time doing that. But nobody finds joy and meaning in organizing the Tupperware, okay? Replenishing the snacks. I always say, like, men will say, like, oh, but I love cooking. I'm like, everybody loves cooking. Nobody likes feeding a toddler 6 times a day, right? Nobody finds joy and meaning in those things. And yet they have to be done. And what we see is that men just don't do them. And so then, of course, there's a gender wage gap, right? It's like once you see that data, then of course there's this gender wage gap because women are literally getting half a deck of cards to play with at the office because we are doing so much at home that we can't lean in the same amount. And so I see it for like I said, the nurses where like they can't pick up that extra shift. But then for those of us who have salaried careers where you need to make investments to get to that next level, for me, it was trying to make tenure. For somebody, it might be partner at a law firm or becoming an attending as a physician. You have to provide those hours to kind of prove yourself. And if you don't get those hours, it's hard to do it. And that was what I saw in my own marriage, where I saw that for my male colleagues, their career was treated like this, important like gem in the whole household. That was like everything had to serve the interests of that career because that career was going to determine the financial success of the entire household. But when it was my career, right, then nothing revolved around that, not even where we lived.
It's baffling that's 2025 and we're still at this point. I know things are changing slowly, but yeah, I also wanted to talk about the squeeze. So I know this is the time crunch of childcare and housework in the 30s. I wanted to add, being in my 40s, I felt a little left out because it's in our 40s too.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I say that this is an average, and a lot of people, some people, when it shows up in the data, some people have their kids in their 20s, so it kind of averages out to your 30s, right?
I think the only difference I'm looking at now, getting into my mid 50s, is that I don't know if the word or the saying is the sandwich generation or the sandwich something, but the aging parents are on
Which,
top of
by the way,
that.
women take on more of the care work for too.
Right, for
Yeah.
both sides of the family. And so I think that even is the squeeze sandwich, I feel like, for
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah. Don't
40s.
get me started on that. The fact that like we also remember like the doctor's appointments and the birthday presents for like the husband's relatives. And you're like, this isn't even my family, and I'm still in charge of this.
Yeah, it's all of it's there. And so the squeeze is when there's a crunch of childcare and housework, but it's also at the time where we're trying to build our careers and actually get the income to be able to pay for help. And you're not even quite there yet. So it's like there's no win-win situation. And the squeeze seems to be from like 30 to 50.
Yeah. And so this was another moment of like I wanted to document it so women knew like it's not in our head, it's in the data. Like I'm not crazy because I was feeling that. I was like, life is so unfun. I'm so exhausted. And I was just like, is it always gonna be like this? And I looked at the data and it was like, no, it's really bad right now. It's not always gonna be like this, right? But it is bad because these things are kind of conspiring together right at this moment. And the reason that they're all showing up in that moment is because we can't time shift when we actually have children until our careers are kind of at a nice steady state, right? And because our careers have changed to require longer investment periods, right? Like used to be that you might get to that level of earning the salary you want to earn by the time you're like 35. And now you're not going to get there until you're 40 or you're 45, right? So all of those forces are kind of working against us. But it's another thing where knowing the data, it can be empowering because then you say, like, okay, this period is going to suck. So I have to be ruthless in pulling resources into this period and simplifying and saying no to things during this time period. And it doesn't mean I'm saying no to it forever. It just means like, yeah, I might see myself as the type of person who serves my community, who takes care of family a lot, who has like a beautiful house and garden. But like, I might need to pare down some of those things during this uniquely difficult period. And that's okay. There's going to be another chapter where I can do and be those things.
I love that. I think everything we have to keep reminding ourselves everything is a cycle. Life is a cycle. Nothing is for all these things that we know, but we have to insert that into what we are going on, what's going on now. And again, I'm going back to a lot of women because all my friends are in their 40s. This midlife crisis, perimenopausal thing, that's legit. All these things are real where it's hitting a lot of us now. Kind of like, wait a minute, what just happened to us ourselves? What happened to that 21-year-old that was breakdancing, my senior, like all the things, and not just with youth or in beauty. It's just kind of like, whoa. It's been a blur of just making shit happen.
It's about the ability to kind of pursue our own interests, exist as a protagonist within our own life, right? And have the experience of our life feel like it actually matters and it's central. It's like when you are dancing at that club, right? You feel like I'm central here. Like this is me.
I
Yeah, I'm the
matter.
center of the scene. And then when you become a mom and a wife, suddenly like you are the supporting character, right? Enabling somebody else's like growth and thriving. And I want women to reclaim their role as the protagonist in their own lives, whatever age you are. If you are 30, if you're 40, if you're 50, okay? The experience of your life matters. And you need to be living a life that feels rich and exciting and joyful.
I feel like breakdancing right now.
Yes. How are you going to get that back? And we've got to figure that out. And that was, again, I speak from a place of having 100% been there and having forgotten that I was like a member of the household. I was making sure the household was okay, but I forgot that I was a member of that household.
And a member of society, and you have impact, and you have all these things. I mean, you literally rebooted your life in many ways.
And you know what? And in that experience, I'm so grateful for everything that happened that allowed me to go on this journey that I've gone on because I got to like in my late 30s date and meet new people and feel like I was in, rom-coms and feel like I was, again, I was like, I was living, I was central in my own life and experience. And I had relationship drama and heartbreak and all of those things. But and I traveled, I solo traveled and I traveled with other people. And it doesn't need to be as extreme as getting divorced to be able to give yourself that experience. But I do want women to find their own version of that, to say, how am I going to reclaim the experience of my life that I am authoring my story and I am the protagonist here. So, as much as I value taking care of other people, of course, as much as I value my kids and want them to be okay, I'm not writing their story. They have to write their own story. I am writing my story. So am I writing the story that I want to have?
I definitely held on to the narrative, letting it unravel a little bit now and then letting it go more and more of being the supporting character for such a long time now. And again, and this is a whole other conversation, but I am part of making that happen. My husband, I think it's all of us that have put me in this role. So I don't just blame him or having kids or this and that. I signed on to it as well. And I think it's, again, maybe that's okay. Maybe whatever it is for everyone, whatever works for each person. But I do feel like so many of us feel like we've disappeared and there's data to prove it. So it's good to know. I love what you had written in an article or an interview somewhere what success means to you now. And I love that you wrote it in economic terms. You said success means achieving what brings you utility, which is the economic word for deep joy and satisfaction in your life. And I think you'd basically summed it up by saying you had to change your idea of what success meant, meaning it's not the white picket fence and the two kids 2 years apart and the first boyfriend and blah, blah, blah. Isn't it just happiness and finding yourself, basically?
I could view things as a failure. Like I could view it as like my first marriage failed, right? And so I try to view it as my first marriage succeeded in teaching me how I needed to take charge of the rest of my life and kind of not let that disappeared self continue to be, the self I was for the rest of my hopefully long life, right? And so yeah, I had to rethink, and it was really hard. I felt this deep sadness every time because when I had my son, I joined this new moms group. And then I watched the women in that group who I was really good friends with each have their second kid kind of like clockwork, right? 2 years after we had all had, our first kid. And I felt this like real, pain of like, that's not my life. I know that my marriage isn't in a place where I can do that. I know financially it doesn't even feel like we're in a place where we can do that because we were living on just my salary with the financial decisions we had made with two salaries. And so I felt really, really stuck. And I did kind of feel like I was a failure. And I also felt like I wasn't at that time going to get tenure at my job because I felt like I was really falling behind. And, having come out the other side of that really, really hard period in my life, I want us all to redefine what success means because if we define it along a linear dimension, that it's, oh, I have to achieve as much in my career as my male colleagues, or I have to like have my home life look as perfect as all of my friends, we will always be dissatisfied because somebody else will always be doing better along one singular dimension. Always, always. Only we can succeed at the unique mandate of maximizing our own utility function and all its richness and complexity and kookiness, right? That's unique to you. I want you to feel successful if you are successful at being yourself, at finding the things that feed you and that bring you joy and meaning. And so that's what I ask people to do is like really reflect on what is your utility function? What brings you that deep joy and meaning? And how is the project of your life maximizing that? And then to understand that we're not as trapped as it might seem. Because when we say, oh, my career has slowed down, I really resent that. Well, maybe that's a choice you made to pursue these other dimensions of your utility function.
I love that. You know what? Like you said in a book or the interview, I'm not sure, you said throw away those houseplants for a while.
Yes.
Like, it's okay. They might die. You may not be able to take care of them. That's okay. Put the Instagram down, throw away the houseplants, and focus. I always tell my own kids and my girls is I'm like, don't ever compare yourself to anyone else. Compare yourself to yourself.
Yeah, because again, when you compare, you're going to compare on a very particular dimension, but you would never give up everything in your life for everything in that other person's life, right? Because you chose this life because it was consistent with your utility function. They're maximizing their own utility function.
Totally. You built this life for a reason. And it's supposed to serve you in the best way possible. So focus on that. Well, hey, you know what? Everything you've been through, you were able to write it out in a wonderful book. So congratulations.
Thank you. And share that wisdom with other people.
I will. We have a book club, so I already suggested this book. I'm going to do a quick fast round with you. So the first thing that comes to mind, biggest pet peeve.
Oh God, that's such a hard one.
Men that don't sweep the floor.
Yeah, that's right. I think people making assumptions.
What would be your dream collaboration for this book?
Ali Wong.
Oh, I love her.
because she has talked about so many of the things that are in the book, right? She talked about this idea of like how it seems retro, but she's like, okay, at least if you were like the housewife, like, somebody else was paying the bills. And like now we're just trying to do everything and it's really hard. And then she went through a divorce. She went through co-parenting. So yes, I would love to talk to her about this book.
That would be amazing. I love her.
And I'm also Asian American, by the way. I'm half Chinese. So that's, yeah.
Okay. Is your mom Chinese? Or
My dad.
Your dad. And what about your mom?
And my mom is Eastern European, muddled, Jewish.
Very cool. Nice. I know this could be a long answer, but whatever story comes to your mind for this. This podcast is called Tuckered Out because I talk to trailblazers like you that have been tuckered out many times. So tell me about a time you were tuckered out recently. I know.
Well, I was like, the book.
New baby book. Everything.
I know, but the book tells the story of my tuckered out story about just being like, oh my God, this is way too much, pumping in the Amtrak bathroom, right? But yeah, I think that this has all been like a reality check because I was kind of living in like this beautiful post-divorce, like re-blossoming life with my like amazing wife and building the house that I wanted. And I got tenure at my job and then I got the book deal. And now like having a newborn and a book at the same time has been a little bit back to reality of me being like, how is this all going to add up? And sometimes like both kids are like screaming at the same time. And I'm like, oh God help me. And my wife just went back to work full time in the office. You know, she had like a work from home job, and I got real used to that life. Let me tell you.
You're like, are you sure you don't want to cook
yeah.
again? You sure?
Yes.
Yeah, totally. I asked that question to every guest, and I was like, I think she's going to have a few of these moments, but I have to ask you anyways. Okay, last question. This is an important one. Best concert you've ever been to and why?
Oh gosh. You know what? My best concert experience was I have so many great concert memories from when I was a kid. But my wife and I, right before the baby was born, I was like hugely pregnant. We went to go see Melissa Etheridge. Okay. And I've gone to some of these throwback concerts where like that person has kept like writing and recording new music. And so they play like the new stuff. And you're like, I don't know any of these songs. This is horrible. Melissa understood the assignment. Okay. She played the classics. Okay. She played that back catalog. And that crowd was like, mostly 45 and up. Okay, me and my wife were on the young side and were absolutely rocking out. And I was like 9 months pregnant, and it was amazing.
Oh my, I'm surprised you didn't give birth right
Yeah,
there. I would have been so
exactly.
excited. That's awesome. I'm an 80s baby, so I love me throwback concerts. And while I agree, I appreciate some of the new stuff. I'm like, what's the assignment, people? We need to like, I need nostalgia. I need to like
I went to go see
cry.
Pearl Jam, and they've put out like 15 albums since like the ones that I know. Okay, so I didn't know any of those songs.
Yeah. No, I know. But keep the excitement, guys. Like, it's fine for the younger kids. I need to cry and think about my life. Thanks. That's all, my friend. This was awesome. I love that you wrote this book. It's so needed. We all of us need it. And so I will pass the word around. This will come out in about 2 weeks. I'll keep you guys posted. I will post about the book and have the link and all that stuff. And so it was so nice meeting you.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to talk, and good luck with everything. Good luck with getting the back to school period and this unique squeeze that we're all in right now.
The 30-year squeeze or the 20-year. I don't even know at this point.
And we'll come out the other side. We will.
We will. It was awesome meeting you. Thank you so much. Tuckered Out is hosted by me, Ami Tucker. This episode is produced by Genie Media with Jeannie Saraswati, Ashley Tuff, Micah Sweetman, Hans Andres, and Laura Radescu. You can follow me at Tuckered Out Podcast on Instagram. And please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast.